Welcome to the Other Discovery Show, the bonus show from the podcast Discovery Show, where we talk about all the other things that we've found throughout the week. We don't talk about podcasts, it's all the other stuff. I'm Kirk.
And I am Zach. And this week, we needed to talk about pickles.
I love pickles.
Yeah, and Kirk actually posted on our Facebook page this week about pickles. And so there's some more interesting stuff you can get into. But basically, I just wanted to kind of figure out the cultural background of pickles, because we all love them. We've all had them in a wide variety of different settings. And pickles, one of the weird things is in America, pickle almost exclusively means cucumber, means pickled cucumber, but pickling is preserving. So it's weird that like we stuck on one specific thing. We really like the pickled cucumbers, I guess. But when I was reading about this, it literally, the first like written records of it was from India around 2400 BE or BC, BCE, I think is what they call it now. So like a really long time ago.
BE means before everything, right?
Yeah, no. But Indian pickles are mostly prepared in three ways: salt brine, oil, vinegar, with mango pickle being the most popular among all. And what
mango pickle?
I'm trying to figure out if that's a mango that is pickled,
probably,
or pickles that have a mango.
I bet it's pickled mango. I bet it's pickled mango.
Honestly, I could see that being pretty good.
Yeah.
I could get behind that. But I also read a little bit about kind of how all this works, because we were talking about doing this. We only grew one cucumber and it was completely inedible. So it's going to have to wait until we can grow more effective cucumbers. But it's interesting because this is like that. When I brought up fermentation that one time, it's kind of like that, because essentially you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it in a acidic environment. So a distinguishing characteristic is a pH of 4.6 or lower, which is sufficient to kill most bacteria. It can preserve perishable foods for months. Antimicrobial herbs and spices such as mustard seed, garlic, cinnamon, or cloves are often added. So you have more antimicrobials in there. And if the food contains sufficient moisture, a pickling brine may be produced simply by adding dry salt. For example, sauerkraut or kimchi, which both of us are huge fans of kimchi.
Yeah.
And it literally, they do just salt it and add a bunch of seasonings, and eventually it's just going to make some deliciousness going out. And it's a natural fermentation, but it's in a very acidic environment. And it literally switches the types of bacteria as it gets more acidic. So when you first make it, there's I don't know if I want to even try and pronounce these. Leuconostoc no, it's not going to happen. So there's one kind of bacteria that goes in a fairly salty but low temperature thing. But then as it gets more acidic, then it changes the type of bacteria that's active in it, and it continues to ferment. So all of this is like this crazy process of antimicrobial things that are doing work. But then you look at the worldwide kind of usage of pickles, and it goes all over the place. A lot of times people are doing basically any vegetable, and you have to assume this is because of its ability to preserve it. When there was scarcity and when there was basically any time where there was poverty, which is always, it helps to be able to store food for long amounts of time.
Yeah.
And so basically every culture has pickled something, pickled multiple everythings. And so you can see a wide variety of random stuff. A lot of them have fruits. A lot of Southeast Asia has fruits, like Singapore has papaya and pineapple, sometimes pickled, which sounds pretty interesting. There's a lot of radish and a lot of the root vegetables. Pretty much everybody also does cucumbers. So I feel like it's universally
pickled fruit.
I can't think of any.
Did we have, was it that
I've had pickled beets.
Rind?
No, beets a tuber.
That watermelon rind that we had that one time from that place, was that pickled? I think that
it was pickled.
And it was weird because it was like the outside of a watermelon.
Yeah. Those tasted good
pickled,
though.
It was like soft and it was good.
I feel like it's cheating when you pickle it though. It just tastes like a pickle.
Yeah, it kind of did. But I'm curious what some of these sweet fruits would taste like pickled.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. And then there's one thing that is very accessible here that I have to like try out now. I think it's pronounced Giardiniera, and it is from Italy originally. And what it is
Giardiniera.
one more time.
Giardiniera.
There it is. So what it is it is pickled a lot of times peppers, like a lot of different kinds of peppers, depending on the kind of heat you want. You pick your peppers based on that. But it essentially has carrots, celery, it has cauliflower, and then it has a bunch of peppers, and it'll have gherkins too. So it'll have pickles in it as well. But this, I think, is what they put on like the Chicago hot dogs. This is very popular in Chicago because of like a lot of Italian immigrants moved into Chicago, and this became a thing. So it's like spicy pickles that I want to introduce to hot dogs. And they say it's really good for Chicago. I think they call it Chicago beef sandwiches. And then also like they do it on the sausages and stuff too. And they say it's good on pizza. So that's one that I definitely want to try out.
That sounds like a chow chow. You know what a chow chow is?
Fluffy dog.
It's like a pickled relish, but it has peppers and stuff in it.
It sounds good.
It's like a southern thing, I think. But yeah, that's what made me think of it. And I looked it up, and yeah, it is a thing. I'm not crazy. It's not just something my dad used to say.
Chow chow?
He's like, give me some of that chow chow. Yeah.
No, I have to look it up so I can see what this looks like.
It's like a relish, but it's not.
When I look it up, it's literally a fluffy dog. I knew it.
Nope, not. Look up chow chow slaw. Chow chow slaw. It's a North American pickled relish. Its ingredients vary considerably depending on whether it's in the North or the Southern variety, as well as separate Canadian varieties prevalent in the Maritimes.
Yeah, and I think I haven't ever really gotten into pickled meats. That's something I feel iffy.
I have tried pickled eggs. Not a fan. Gross.
Yeah,
Ugh.
and you like eggs. I watched you eat an entire bag of eggs yesterday or 2 days ago.
I ate so many.
If you think I'm like exaggerating, no. He had a bag of eggs, and he ate.
I made a bunch of deviled eggs, and there was a lot left over, and they were gonna go bad if I left them in the fridge. So I brought them for lunch. So I ate 9 eggs for lunch.
I'm trying to remember what else you ate. It was like eggs, salmon, and kimchi.
That's exactly what I ate.
So, if you're wondering, there was a myriad of smells that combined to make a rich tapestry smell.
Yeah, it was special. Now, talking about pickles, we got to talk about the thing that we just discovered is a thing that we're going to try now.
Oh, we're definitely doing this. We talked to the group about this too.
And so we talked at length because actually people in our podcast Discovery Club have done it, and it is Kool-Aid pickles. And it sounds really easy to do according to, them and looking it up.
Yeah, it's nothing.
It sounds so weird, but apparently this is like some hipster thing that is blowing up and people love it. So basically you take a jar of pickles, you pour out a little bit of the juice, and you put a packet of
No, you need to pour it all out into a bowl so you can mix it right.
Whatever. But you're just putting Kool-Aid in a jar of pickles.
You add Kool-Aid and sugar
for like a week
to dill pickles, and you let it sit there, and people love it. Has anyone tried this? Has anyone tried Kool-Aid pickles? Who knows? But we're going to try it.
So weird. But we are going to try it. It sounds interesting. I have an inclination that I actually might like it. I'm going to be a Kool-Aid pickle man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, we love pickles, and we wanted to talk about them. And there's also, if you want to read some more funny stuff, there's some more on our Facebook group that you can go check out that Kirk posted by coincidence with a typo this week.
It's not a glaring typo. It's just a small one, and that's why it snuck past me. Zach, jeez, why you gotta call me out like that, man?
Because it's funny.
All right, so I have a discovery this week that I could not talk about. It is from a podcast. I heard about it from a podcast.
How dare you?
Like I said in the time where you had me muted, well, I muted myself technically, and no one.
Yeah, I
could hear
didn't
me, but I was
change
talking
anything.
for a long time. What I was saying was, I have been listening to a ridiculous amount of Reply All. In the last month, I've listened to like 80 episodes, and I listened to one this week that blew my mind about a man that I had never heard about. And I'm going to put the link again in the chat because we got a few new people in there. But I want people to like look at this and see more stuff about this guy because I can't talk about everything. But this guy is crazy. His name was John R. Brinkley. Okay. And for those that are playing at home, this is his Wikipedia page. The episode that I heard this on was from Reply All episode number 86. I'm going to put that link in the show notes. And it's called Man of the People. And long story short, this dude was like a fake doctor and it's in a town of like 300 in Kansas. And a farmer came to him and he's like, "Hey doc." Basically he was saying he was infertile. He was impotent. And he said, "Man, I wish that I was like all these goats out there. Ain't no goat ever impotent." And the doctor was kidding and said, "Well, heck, I should get some of those goat testicles and put them in you." And the farmer's like, "That's a great idea. Let's do it." And the doc's like, "Well, I was kidding." He's like, "No, I ain't leaving till you do it." So the farmer essentially coerced the doctor into having him surgically insert goat testicles where his testicles were. And then the doctor started doing this as his main practice.
I'm hating this story so far.
So Brinkley began promoting Goat-Glands as a cure for 27 different ailments, ranging from dementia to emphysema to flatulence. I don't know why they added that one. Whoever wrote this Wikipedia was having a little fun.
No, I'm just saying like flatulence seems extreme to go have a goat testicle put into you.
He has a quote here that was in his advertisements, which was, "The ram that am with every lamb." The ram that am with every lamb.
This sounds like a guy that was on drugs, even when drugs weren't readily available. Like he was on some stuff.
This guy became extremely popular. A lot of people did this, which is disturbing. But yeah, and Automod just modded Josh. But
No, you should see our auto mod permissions. They're all Josh saying weird anatomical words.
The American Medical Association, which was brand new, started like really putting a microscope on this guy because he was doing, stuff that was really out there, obviously. But one of the first things that he did that was very innovative in a lot of ways was he decided to make a radio show. Like this is at the beginning of radio. So he was allowed to get he got a radio station, and his sole purpose of his radio station was to advertise basically his goat gland insertions or whatever he called it. And so he would do all of this stuff on his radio channel where he'd have music and he'd have preachers and stuff like that come on there. And then during the commercials, he would talk all about his life-saving goat testicle surgery that he would do for you and how it could change your life. He also, and this is nuts, and it's hard to wrap your mind around the early, even this is, American time of medicine. It's just things were so it was just a wild west. He started a radio segment called Medical Question Box. He would read listeners' medical complaints over the air, and then he would suggest a treatment. Basically, he would prescribe medicine over the radio, and most of the time, it was his treatment that he had patented and had at all the pharmacies. So it would be like, try Brinkley 87 for your ailment of this and that. So he's basically reading someone's ailments and then prescribing them a product of his over the radio. It's crazy. This dude, at one point, it says it is estimated that this whole thing that he was doing with his that over the counter medicine type thing, or not over the counter, his prescribed medicine was generating $14,000 in profit weekly for Brinkley, or about $11 million per year in current value. Reports of patients who took Brinkley's suggested treatment showing up sick at other doctors' offices began to grow, and eventually, pharmaceuticals whose medicine Brinkley routinely misprescribed requested that the AMA respond, but they just didn't have any power to do anything. This is at the beginning of the medical association, and another thing with Brinkley is he was very philanthropic. So he would donate all this money to the town, and everyone loved him. So when the AMA would try to come like take him down, so eventually the medical board was able to do something, and they took him to court, and he's like, no one has ever had any issues with one of my surgeries, blah, blah, blah. And the AMA brought out documents of 42 death certificates that he had signed himself, that he had done in his office. People that died during surgery. So this isn't even counting the people that maybe died after, or like from complications or anything like that. This dude was basically one of the best serial killers ever.
Yeah, is there complications of putting goat testicles randomly in your body?
I think there might be.
That is horrific. This guy was a butcher. I've never heard of this person. The
crazy thing is, at the time, there was no law against malpractice as a doctor. So he got away with it completely. So there was no repercussions other than they took his radio license and they took his radio station away. No, his radio station and his medical license.
There are some things about the past where it's always fun to fantasize about, like, oh, if I had a time machine, which time would I go back to in the past? And it's like none of those times. Like, I don't think it's as good as we pretend it is.
I'm only halfway through this story, because what does Brinkley do when he loses his license and his radio station? He runs for governor of Kansas, because everyone loves this guy, because he's had all this money and he's been spreading the love and the wealth with everyone. There's a little league team in his town called the Goats because he sponsored it.
It is insane. And Reply All did an episode on this guy?
Yes, it is. The whole episode's about him. Wait till we get to the end, because this episode, it's amazing, man. He was an amazing showman because he had the radio station. He had connections with all these artists and stuff, like singing artists and preachers and stuff like that. So he had a private jet, which none of the other politicians had. So he became super popular in the governor race, and he nearly won. The only reason he didn't win was over a technicality, because he was so late entering the race that he was a write-in, and a lot of people misspelled his name, and so they didn't count those votes. If they would have counted all those votes, he would have won by like 50,000 votes.
That is
not even done yet. He ran like 3 more times. He never won, but he got very close to winning the governor, which is crazy. So after this, he decides, okay, well, I can't have a radio station in the U.S. anymore, but this radio station thing was doing great for me. So what does he do? He moves to the border, right across Mexico border, and the Mexican government, eager to get even with its northern neighbors for dividing up North America's radio frequencies without giving any to Mexico. They granted Brinkley, I think his first radio station was like 50 watt. So it was like his little town could hear it. Mexico granted Brinkley a 50,000 watt radio license, and construction began on his radio station that he called the Border Blaster. And then he started a whole new radio station from Mexico doing the same thing. Like, basically, he would
random Mexican people now instead of Americans?
No, he was basically he was selling airtime to other quack doctors that would sell their stuff, like crystals, and there was somebody that was selling signed pictures of Jesus. Supposedly it was Jesus inside it. Wait. Yes. People were buying this.
I'm trying to figure out how you can work around mentally that Jesus signed, not only that Jesus signed something, but two, that it was a picture. It was fairly recent that Jesus did this.
So it says that he began selling airtime to advertisers for $1,700 an hour, which is equivalent to $26,000 an hour today, giving rise to new hucksters shilling products such as crazy water crystals, genuine simulated diamonds, life insurance, and an array of religious paraphernalia, including what was proposed to be an autographed picture of Jesus Christ.
I wish. Okay, first of all, I do want the autographed picture of Jesus. I do want that. Like, is that weird? Because like, and actually, Twigs has a good point. Maybe it was pronounced Jesus.
And
so then it was just some random dude that he met in Mexico. He's like, here's a picture of him.
But what's even crazier about this story, because we are wrapping it up. So he became very successful with this. He got to the point where he ran a phone line from his radio station to his home in the U.S. so that he could record from his house. The U.S. said they had to do all this stuff to make that illegal. They made that illegal, so then he just started mailing tapes to his radio station, and they just started doing it. So he just got around it all the time. He just would find ways to get around it. But in 1932, the Mexican government allowed Brinkley to increase his wattage to 150,000 watts. Several months later, Brinkley was allowed to increase to 1 million watts,
moving on,
making his radio station by far the most powerful radio station on the planet, that on a clear night could be heard as far away as Canada.
How did this guy do this? I don't understand. There's other
parts in the article that talks about like ranchers in Texas could hear his radio stuff on their barbed wire fences. People could hear it on their phones.
Really high. It
was just so strong. And so basically, he's a pioneer in radio. And it's for the worst things ever.
We take for granted a lot about the quick access of information, because when was this that he was doing this whole shenanigans?
This was almost my dad's day. It was 1932 was this whole thing when he became like super popular with the radio station.
So there would be newspapers, there would be radio, but this is very early TV. Like maybe if there was TV, very early. I can't remember the exact timeline on when the first TV was, but information was limited. It wasn't something where, because now I feel like if some guy had a weird radio station, all you have to do is Google him and you can find out if he's a psychopath or not that's put goat testicles in people. Like, I feel like that is, as soon as I heard that, I'd be like, I'm out. I'm out of whatever you're into, man.
And the AMA finally won because they did, of course, this is the way they get him. They finally got him convicted of a bunch of things, including tax fraud and mail fraud. This is like the way they get gangsters, man. You know, it's like can't get him on anything else because nothing else will stick. So they finally got him on those kind of things.
I mean, of course he's committing tax fraud. The dude is like, he is just, I don't understand how I bet, did they make laws because of this dude? Like malpractice laws because of this guy? No, they did.
The law about the radios, this the thing. But the radio station, where having a line from one country to the other and being able to do it from your house, that's called the Brinkley Law, because it was only for him, basically. But yes, I'm sure they did other medical laws as well. But I want to read this last excerpt because it's great, and it wraps it up great. Brinkley's life and career is featured in an episode of episode 1 of season 3 of the Travel Channel's series Mysteries at the Museum. In 2016, director Penny Lane made Nuts, a documentary about Brinkley's life that uses animation to illustrate scenes from his life. The Reply All podcast, episode 86, Man of the People, is about Brinkley's life, and a film based on the podcast episode is in development to be written and directed by Richard Linklater and starring Academy Award nominee Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. is going to play Brinkley?
I think so.
And Linklater's really good. Like, that's going to be a good movie.
Honestly, this is an older episode, so it maybe didn't happen, but it's crazy that they were talking about. This is a crazy story.
No, it's an insane
crazy story. And the fact that they might make a movie based off of a podcast episode is great.
I feel like I need time to process that amount of shenanigans that you just said.
It was amazing. It was one of the craziest stories. And of course, I didn't do it justice compared to
Reply All is just a great show, though. Like, they're fantastic storytellers. We normally try to not talk about them at all over here because we have an entire show devoted to that. But Reply All is really great, and you can learn a lot of random stuff all over the place there. It's really, really good. So after we talked about a show called The Rabbit Hole, which was a fantastic show. We have a lot of podcast references here, but this isn't about a podcast. This is literally people have, they created profiles on YouTube. They tried to go into certain paths so that you could generally understand what people would be seeing as their homepage on YouTube based on different worldviews. So you can go on this website and you can see the ones that they have that you can check out is a Fruitarian, which I guess they really love fruit. Do you know what the Fruitarian is?
Yeah, I think I heard that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I'll look it up while I'm talking about the other ones. So you can see a Fruitarian, which a subset of dietary veganism that consists entirely or primarily of fruits and possibly nuts and seeds, but without animal products. It seems like there's not enough nutrients in that, but I don't know enough about it to really talk trash about it.
Oh, that's where we heard about it. Josh talked about it before. It's the people that only eat stuff that falls off trees.
Oh, that's really hardcore.
Yeah, I think they don't even pick it off.
So they don't want to hurt a tree. They don't want to hurt the tree by taking its fruits. I don't know.
Yeah, don't want to hurt their feelings.
So you can see a Fruitarian, you can see a prepper, you can see a liberal, you can see a conservative, you can see a conspiracist, and a climate denier. And you literally just click on one of each of these things and it'll show you, and you can get a kind of a general sense of the types of things that each of these groups would be exposed to on a daily basis on YouTube. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to check out, and we'll have that in the show notes because it's.
So is it almost like a experiment to see?
I think it's basically, and I mean, experiment in a general sense because it's ongoing, and I'll put that in the chat so everybody can check it out. But it's basically something that's cool because you can see, first of all, which kind of camp you're falling into, if not completely, because they probably went as hard into these directions as possible to kind of have the algorithm be one thing. But if you start seeing some of these, you can see that that's kind of the algorithm starting to put you kind of in that category. And then if you see all of them, you've gone down a path, a hard path. But yeah, the final discovery for the week is I just talked to him today. His name is George Pennington III, and he is an incredible guitarist and a really great guy. He just released a recent album this year that is all him playing classical guitar pieces that he worked on while in isolation and quarantine. But thank you so much for listening to the show. thank you, everybody who's watching the live stream. If you have never checked out the live stream, we would love to have you. We'd love to have you join the conversation with us. We have a great time talking to everybody on here. And we also have a Facebook group we have a great time in there as well. We share discoveries all the time. Kirk is constantly putting out awesome discoveries on a daily basis. We have a bunch of people in there that are sharing great stuff like how to make Kool-Aid pickles. Mm-hmm. And those types of things are important to have in your life. And so you can have that in your life too. We have a Twitter at the PDS Official. We have a Twitch channel. Basically, if you look up the Podcast Discovery Show, there's stuff around. And any way that you can support the show, we greatly appreciate it because we love interacting with anybody who listens. So thank you so much for that.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
And with that, this is off this new album, Daydream Sequence. This is Glimpses of Spain.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.